Okay, so if you've ever lived in a place with a homeowners association, you know the rules can be, well, a little intense. But what happens when you think the HOA isn't just being strict, but is actually breaking the law? We're about to dive into a real-life legal saga that shows exactly what can happen. I mean, it's the scenario every homeowner dreads, right? You get that official violation notice in the mail. Maybe your first thought is to just toss it, or maybe fire off a really angry email. But this is the story of a homeowner who decided to take them on, legally. Let's see what happened. All right, let's meet the players. In one corner, we have the homeowner, Mr. Rogelio A. Garcia. He is the petitioner, the guy bringing the complaint. And in the other corner, the Villagio at Tempe Homeowners Association, the respondent. Their little dispute blew up into a full-on legal battle that went all the way to Arizona's Office of Administrative Hearings. So what was this whole fight about? Well, the HOA claimed that Mr. Garcia was renting out his unit and breaking their rules on short-term leases. Seems simple enough, right? But as you're about to see, it wasn't the accusation itself, but how the HOA handled it that really sparked a legal firestorm. Let's break this legal fight down round by round. It all kicked off the way these things usually do, with a couple of letters that escalated really, really fast. What's wild here is just how quickly everything went downhill. Take a look at this timeline. March 8th, you get the first notice. Just 2 weeks later, bam, a second notice hits, but this time with a $1,000 fine attached. Another 2 weeks go by, and they tack on another $2,000. By August, Mr. Garcia had clearly had enough, and he filed a formal legal petition. And this right here is the absolute key to his entire case. Mr. Garcia's argument wasn't really about whether he did or didn't have short-term renters. His whole claim was that the way the HOA sent those notices, the way they fined him, the way they communicated, actually violated a specific Arizona state law. The law he was pointing to is Arizona Revised Statute Section 33-1242. Now, this isn't some dusty, obscure rule nobody's ever heard of. It's basically the legal playbook for how HOAs are supposed to handle these exact situations. It lays out a really clear process to protect everyone involved. So how is it supposed to work according to that law? Well, think of it as a pretty simple 3-step dance. Step 1, the HOA sends a written notice. Step 2, the homeowner gets a full 21 days, not 10, but 21, to formally respond using certified mail. And then, Step 3, only after the HOA gets that certified letter do they have to provide more details, like, who actually saw this violation in the first place. So, Mr. Garcia's whole argument was that the HOA just totally skipped over these legally required steps. The HOA, on the other hand, claimed he was just misreading the law. Both sides made their case to a judge, which brings us to the first big decision in this fight. And in this first round, it all came down to one number, 21. Remember, that state law gives the homeowner 21 days to send that certified letter. That's the action that triggers the HOA's duty to provide more info. But when the judge looked at the record, it was clear. Mr. Garcia never sent that letter within the 21-day window. And because he missed that critical deadline, the judge basically said the HOA's legal duty to give him more information was never actually switched on. So Mr. Garcia's petition was dismissed. Round 1 goes to the HOA. But as you can probably guess, this whole thing was far from over. Mr. Garcia was not giving up. He actually managed to get a rehearing, which is basically a second chance to argue his case. And this time, both sides came back to the table with some new, much sharper legal strategies. Okay, so Mr. Garcia's new argument was pretty clever. He said that the HOA's letters, which demanded he fix the problem in just 10 days, basically prevented him from using his legal right to that 21-day response time. The HOA fired back with a new defense of their own. They argued that the state law only applied to the physical condition of a property, like peeling paint, not how it was being used, like for a rental. So during this rehearing, Mr. Garcia, who was representing himself, got to cross-examine the HOA's community manager. And he asked a very simple, very direct, and what turned out to be an absolutely bombshell question. Just let that sink in for a second. The HOA's own manager, under questioning, straight up admitted that even if Mr. Garcia had followed the 21-day state law perfectly, they still would not have followed it. When asked, he just replied, no. So, why not? Well, the manager went on to explain that the HOA follows its own internal policy, which only gives homeowners 10 days to respond. And that moment, right there, perfectly sums up the whole case. A private organization's internal rules clashing head-on with the laws of the state. Now, that admission seems like a total slam dunk for the homeowner, right? I mean, the HOA just said on the record they wouldn't follow the law. Well, let's see what the judge actually decided in the final verdict.
Yeah, despite that really shocking testimony from the manager, the judge's decision came right back to the core of Mr. Garcia's new argument that he was prevented from responding. And the judge basically said, look, there's no actual evidence of that. The HOA's 10-day demand might have been confusing, maybe even improper, but it didn't physically stop him from walking into a post office and mailing a certified letter.
And just like that, the judge dismissed Mr. Garcia's petition again. The HOA was officially the winner. It's a really tough lesson in just how important legal procedure is, and a reminder that in court, the burden of proof is always on you. So after all that, what can the rest of us actually learn from Mr. Garcia's fight? This isn't just a story about one guy in Arizona. It's practically a playbook filled with critical lessons for anyone who lives under an HOA. Okay, here are the big takeaways. First, deadlines are everything. Missing that 21-day window was the fatal flaw in round one. Second, you have to read every single notice from your HOA like a hawk. Third, always communicate formally and in writing. Certified mail is your best friend because it creates a legal paper trail. Fourth, and this is a huge one, you have to be aware that your HOA's internal rules might not actually line up with state law. And finally, maybe the biggest lesson of all, this case proves that sometimes the procedure, how things are done, can be way more important than what you were accused of in the first place. And that really leaves us with one last crucial question to think about. This whole case hinged on a procedural mistake, but it uncovered a much bigger issue. When the internal rules of a private community directly clash with state law, who do you think should have the final say? It's definitely something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.